Welcome everyone. So today I have with me Pratik Garg, who is one of my friend, and he works with an investment banking firm called Rainmaker Group. The idea was to understand how the investment banking industry works from Pratik because he has been there, worked there for 1.5 years now, and this will help a lot of chartered accountants also to understand because there will be many of you would want to enter into this industry, and it's usually not a traditional career option which CAs usually choose, but it's a great option in finance if you want to make a career in finance. It opens up a lot of opportunities afterwards. Thanks Pratik for taking out time today. It's late in night, so the Pratik is. But thank you so much, Pratik. So, upon sorry questions I have ready with me. So I'll ask you questions about your journey and etc. So we'll cover in that way, fashion.
Sure. Thank you so much, Siddhant, for giving me this opportunity to help the CA fraternity. I'm sure they're a big fan of yours, including you and us during finals. I think it was you who helped me actually motivate to that AI1 thing. So eventually it not land up there, but I think AI 34. So I think that was a great deal in itself. So kudos to you
Thanks, yeah.
and to inspire the entire fraternity.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's what we wanted to do. We always want to do help our fraternity people so that they can also take their career options, looking at the knowledge and what we have gathered till now. So ठीक है. So मेरे interviews normally ऐसे ही start होते हैं. So tell me about your journey of becoming CA, and also I think you have done CFA. So tell me about how this journey has evolved.
Yeah. So again, I think like others, so as someone who would not want to pursue CA, so came by chance to me. So just started studying class 12th with the only ambition to go to Delhi for my college. Ended up at Shahid Bhagat Singh College, Delhi City. Gave my CPT, went really good somehow. Didn't want to fail there. So the objective was just to pass. But I know unofficially, I think I was then the top India 20 also there. Then went on to my IPCC, cleared IPCC. After that, I took a childlike decision to like drop out of my college, and from there I shifted to Bangalore directly for my articleship. So
Hmm.
just before my articleship started, so as they're back at home, so my uncle is into share brokerage, so he has a sub brokerage firm.
Hmm.
So that is pretty interesting for me to see how in a short duration people can change their world in terms of the money that they can earn and in terms of what they can do in the financial
Hmm.
markets. So that was a big career change, or like I would say a big insight for me. So when I moved to Bangalore, so the first thing I did was I researched about how can I learn more about the markets. So that's when I also landed upon this course called the CFA. So I started off my CFA journey there itself. So I completed all the three levels before giving my CA finals. Also, one interesting thing is that so I decided to basically delay one of my attempt. So I delayed my
Hmm.
attempt, but then due to COVID, I think it got delayed further. Eventually, I gave my CA final in the month of January 21, and yeah, the results came out later on. And eventually, I landed up here.
Acha. So you started after clearing chartered accountancy. You directly went into an IB firm. First of all, tell viewers about what is investment banking. होता क्या है ये?
Yeah. So
And
again,
also
investment
then,
banking, very
why did
simple terms. Yeah.
sorry, yeah, and why did you choose to get into IB?
Yeah. So I'll just start off. Why did I choose to get into IB? So basically, again, after clearing CA, so generally there are plethora of options that you can explore. So they could be a traditional CA career path, vis-a-vis the new, let's say the MBA kind of roles that you can get into.
Yeah.
So I was very clear because of my experience during my articleship, I didn't want to go into maybe a standard taxation, auditing, or something like that. So again, I'll just go back to my articleship experience. So I think that was pretty different from what people generally pursue or like learn in the articleship. So starting with my the articleship experience, I think first year for me was just indirect taxes. So GST was just launched there and learned a bit of that. Second year was into statutory audit. I think third year is what made the change for me. So
Hmm.
third year, there's a department at my firm. So I was doing my articleship with Singhi Devan only, forgot to mention that. So
Uh,
there's a department in the firm called business consultancy. So in that, what we did was broadly two functions. One, we helped startups with the due diligence part. Second, we also helped startups with the early stage fundraise. So the seed round or the
okay,
Series A rounds.
got it.
So I was fortunate enough to work in 3 to 4 due diligences and also get a fundraise experience. So I think that was a game changer for me there itself. Now, this experience in my CV helped me to bag a lot of roles, not just investment banking. Now, I'll move on to the investment banking bit. So, what is investment banking? So, in very simple words, it is something that facilitates a transaction between a buyer and a seller. So,
Okay.
in very simple terms, let's just say it's a real estate property. There's a buyer or the owner, and there's a owner of the property. He wants to sell the property to someone else. The mediator or the agent is the investment banker here. Now, to
Got
go
it.
on to the financial jargon itself. So, investment banking is someone that facilitates the financial transactions. It could be very complex to very simple ones. Typically, I would actually bucket these roles into four buckets. One, the M&A part. So basically helping companies with mergers and acquisitions. The second would be the private tech banking. Again, there are different names for this. You can call it corporate finance or tech banking or a lot of other names. Again, the nomenclature is not much of importance here. The work what goes on there is of utmost paramount importance. So this is where I also work. The third part would be the ECM or the equity capital markets, and fourth being the debt capital markets. Okay, now to deep dive onto each of these. So M&A is basically when the companies generally acquire the other company for a substantial stake. The second part, investment banking, like you'd heard of startups raising funds from Swiggy, Zomato, or let's just say Vedantu, Cardeko. So when these companies raise funds, and you read in the news key, startup XYZ has raised Series C of $100 million or $50 million. So the person who facilitates the transaction between the company and the venture capitalist or the private equities is the investment banker. And for this, these guys earn a percentage fee, typically about 1 to 4%, and depending on the size of the deal. So this is where I also work, and there are also other banks that work. I'll come to that phase later on as to how can you apply over here and onto other banks. The third part is the equity capital markets, wherein you help with the IPO stuff. So basically, companies going for an IPO, they go for such investment bankers. Fourth part is on the debt side. Again, they can be investment banks that offer all of these services. So you need to basically know about the investment bank that you're applying to and the role that you're applying to.
So investment banking is mainly who facilitates the transaction of fundraising, because mainly it's fundraising or maybe M&A or maybe IPO. These usually are called merchant bankers. Got it. So
Right.
your interest was inclined towards, even after clearing CA यार IB ही join करना है, uh, or you chose IB after considering all the options like consulting, etc., etc.
Right. So again, I was very clear. So again, not to go back to the traditional rules, and I had three options in my mind there. So one was, of course, investment banking. Was the second one was consulting. The third one was going to a startup. So the reason
Yeah.
why I had selected all of these three places to work for is each of these open a plethora of options after you get some experience there.
Yeah.
So from an investment
Correct.
bank, you could go to a PE, you could go to a startup that you're consulting, or you could do anything basically. Again, from consulting, I think it's likewise. So you can just head out anywhere. And startups, again, you can head back to investment banking or maybe to the consulting role or maybe to
Start.
the PEVC side. So the idea was just to keep my options open again and choose the best
Got.
that comes. And I'd also recommend everyone to not to stick to just one option because these roles are not so easy to be found. And plus,
Yeah.
you need to go, in some cases, undergo gruesome interview process, which you may or might not clear, and the opportunities are limited.
Yeah. ठीक है. Got it.
Yeah,
ठीक है. So tell me about what is a typical day in a life of an investment banker, and how does it evolve over the years as you see, as you grow?
right. So yeah, about that. So basically, I'll just like to cover. So when you get into investment banking, there can be three types of offices that you can join: the back office, mid office, or the front office. So
Hmm.
typically, when you consult or maybe interact with the client or the investors directly, that's sort of front office. Again,
Front
this
office.
goes the level of interaction reduces as you go back to the middle office or the back office. So the bank that
Correct.
I'm working with,
Correct.
it's a front office role. So basically, here
Hmm.
I'd be interacting with the founders and the investors directly. Now,
Correct.
when a fresher joins,
Hmm.
so typically, again, it's not like people directly get into this role. Uh, if well, basically you might have to land up certain other roles to get here itself. So basically you might have to get into a due diligence role or like startup role, then you might get here. Now about the life, the normal day life in case of an analyst. So typically when you join a bank, so you'll be staffed not just in a deal. So you'll be helping the other folks who are already running a mandate. So mandate here is a client basically that you're helping with the fundraise. So let's just say we're consulting Vedanta for our fundraise. So Vedanta is one of our clients. So when we are helping Vedanta with the fundraise, a new joinee that comes on board, you'll be given some sort of a research work. Suppose you have to find the market size of certain sector, let's just say, of the higher
Correct.
education in India, or maybe
Hmm.
you need to find out a certain comp set, find out the competitors list, and see at what
Hmm.
valuation these companies are traded and what was the revenue when they got their last fundraise done.
Correct.
So typically
Correct.
it will be more like a research work. So never
Hmm.
expect that once you get into this kind of profiles, that will be straight upon put onto a deal, and you'll be asked to lead the deal or maybe just interact with everyone. So
Hmm.
I think the patience is the key here. Plus, what I think is important for everyone is that be patient. So with regard to whatever you do, everything will be new for you. Considering that
Correct.
these resources or every terminology that you read or listen to every day will be different for you. So
Correct.
knowing the knack of those things itself takes time.
Correct. Yeah.
So eventually, once you start understanding things and your partner or the person that you're working with, your immediate superior, they start getting confidence that Acha, this guy can actually take on some bigger steps. That's when you're
Hmm.
properly staffed into a deal. Now, about getting staffed into a deal, this is typically a structure that investment banks follow. And this typically differs from banks to banks. But a typical structure that I've seen is there'll be a partner who will be leading the deal.
Hmm.
Inside him or below him would be a VP, a vice president, and below him would be either two analysts or one analyst or associates. So
Correct.
eventually, as you evolve, so you move on from becoming an analyst who does everything with regard to the deal, and maybe in some cases also gets a chance to represent the firm to the investors and also talk to the
Correct.
company with regard to the numbers and everything.
Hmm.
Now, this level of ownership, basically, with regard to the interactions and with regard to what do you need to do next, increases as you gain experience. So eventually, what you do is you start leading the deal. By leading the deal, you mean you are the sole person who's interacting with each and every VCP out there. And also, you're the
Correct.
sole contact person with regard to the company as well. So
Hmm.
basically, the kind of ownership that is there and the kind of impact that can create increases with each and every step. And eventually, of course, the you can become partner and maybe just own the firm and yeah, everything else.
Got it. Got it. So tell me what happens on the back end in the what happens in the back end mainly. What do you do when let's say a startup assigns you that you have to go and raise money for us? What so because that time you start working on that deal. Well, what happens over there? What do you do that time?
Right. So that's a very good question. So basically, again, I think first of all, we don't just select any startup.
Yeah.
So before, let's just say there's a company which wants to raise funds, and
Hmm.
this company reaches out to us. Let's just say the investment bankers. So we don't per se just take the company. Acha, theek hai, you want to raise funds, we'll take you in. So basically, kind of evaluate
Hmm.
whether this deal is placeable or not.
Hmm. Got
So
it.
basically, before taking up the deal, also we'll do a pre-evaluation. So
Correct.
basically, see their MIS, see how the numbers are shaping up for the past few months or years, and then maybe
Hmm.
eventually take a call as to whether we should take up the mandate or not. Again,
Got it.
typically, what also happens is that this company might not just come to you, but also go to some other investment banks as well.
Yeah.
So in that case, each of these investment banks pitch to the company and their board, why are we the best suited for you?
Why?
For
Right.
example, given our background, so we've got a great background with regard to edtech. So
Hmm.
Vedantu, Skilling, a lot of other players. So we've done deals for them. So the next deal that you want to sign up for, it becomes easier for us because they know we have worked in the
Correct.
sector.
Right.
So again, about the pitching, so you can do a lot of things there. Yeah. Now coming to your question, so basically once you get the mandate, what do you do? So eventually, see, everyone needs to think from an investor's perspective as to what the
Hmm.
investors wants to look at. So again, going back to what you've seen Shark Tank, which is famous right now. So everyone comes with a pitch, right? So not
Okay.
just on the TV, but it's a presentation that you prepare. So that is
Hmm.
one. So again, presentation can be a smaller presentation for uh, the founder to present during the investor meetings, which is typically of about 30 minutes to an hour, the initial first meeting,
Yeah.
when the founders takes the investors through the company. again, we generally also have some backup slides or the initial slides, which is a detailed presentation that we give for self-reading in case later on required. So that is one part of the collateral that we prepare. The second thing is basically the numbers. So numbers divided into two parts: the current numbers and the future numbers. So for the current numbers, we prepare something called as a data book. So data book includes all the financial and operational metrics of the company. Now, to give you an example, let's just take the case of an edtech company. So in case of an edtech company, what is the revenue? How has that been shaping up? What has their bookings been? These are the financial metrics, the cash flow and everything. Now, how many people are getting placed out of that? Now, how many people are able to land jobs in their dream profiles? So there's certain operational metrics that the investors also want to look at. So depending upon the industry, so we just bifurcate the data book into certain number of sheets, and we try to showcase the best position of the company. So there are a lot of calls we take as to which number is good, which number is not good. Also, we try to build up a story with regard to each and every number that is there. So this is the second thing that we prepare. Now, this file becomes a base for the future projections, which is typically the 5-year model or a business plan. Now, these three are the most important data or collateral that we prepare. Apart from this, basis the company or the complexity of the company, we also prepare something called a note. So a note explaining the company in a very simple English language. So basically, it's like you're explaining the presentation in English. So it could range from about 8 pages to 20 pages or whatsoever. So as to why you should think about the company and how you should think about the company. Why is it good enough? Apart from all of this, you can also prepare something called as a FAQ note. So basically, there's some questions which are asked repeatedly by the investors. You know that these questions will be coming. So to reduce your time to explain, to put in that effort to explain the investors, you just cut down and prepare this note. So create a FAQ section. So these are 5 main collaterals that you prepare, and as the process builds upon, you keep on answering the questions of the investors. For that, you generally interact with the company on a real-time basis.
Got it. And usually, typically, if this fundraisers usually take what, 4 to 6 months?
Yeah. So basically, I'll just again break that down. So let's just say with regard to the pitching and everything, if that includes that evaluation, everything, that will be about a month's process before you get the client. Now, after you get the client, so you'll start preparing these collaterals that I talked to you about, these 5 things. So that takes about a month. And it could also range to maybe 2 months also, depending upon how the data is generally structured. Like how we can, because we consulted startups, the data is generally not in the best manner possible. Because the finance team is generally small and there's a lot of things which goes on. Yeah. And apart from, so once we do this, we do a roadshow. So basically we reach out to all the relevant investor pool. So depending on the size of the fund, it could be a venture capital, it could be a PE. Now that process could be anywhere. So typically it takes 4 to 6 months in totality. But again, if the numbers don't shape up good, it could take about a year also and maybe more.
More than. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. It generally depends on when you get the term sheet. So again, about explaining the process itself. So once the investor agrees, actually this company looks good, the investor generally hands out something called as a term sheet. A term sheet being a non-binding document. And after that, a due diligence is done. So due diligence would be taxation, legal, and secretarial.
Financial.
In some cases, commercial also. Yeah. Financial, legal, taxation, and also commercial. So once these are satisfied, you get the money in the bank account after signing all the deal-related documents, shareholders agreement and the share subscription agreement.
Correct. Got it. Yeah. So Pratik, how did you get into an IB? First of all, how did you get into this particular firm, and what was the interview process like? And because a lot of people would be appearing for these kind of interviews, so how should one prepare themselves before setting in an interview?
Right. So again, 2 parts to the question. So basically, one, how do you get into an IB, and second, how do you prepare? So I think to get into an IB, I think they can do 2 things. One, your own personal network, and second would be the external networks that you can tap into. So let's just say personally, if you know certain people or certain people in the national banks or your friends, so who are already working there, I think that's the best go-to thing that you can do. So just ask them to maybe forward your resume and take things ahead. Again, a lot of times, I think everyone should be very transparent and very clear about it. You might not receive replies because the number of people hired in this kind of a industry is very low or very limited. The second thing that you tap into is the external sources. Now, this would include anywhere from a LinkedIn to, let's just say, IM jobs, or even some WhatsApp groups that are floating around, which wherein they post when the CA people or your friends or from MBA keep on posting about the job vacancies. But I think what is most critical here is the LinkedIn bit. So I think what everyone should do is firstly identify a good list of investment banks that they want to enter. And once you've identified that, go to people, reach out to those people through LinkedIn. So basically, just type out a simple message: "Hi, I'm so and so. I've done this, this. I felt that you're working. Well, I found your profile relevant, and I'm so much interested in such and so profile." Prepare a good standard short message and send out to them, and check out the replies. Again, one mistake that people generally do is they try to reach out either to the lower folks in the organization, maybe the analysts or associates, or either just to the partners. A lot of times when the analysts or the associates might not have idea about the hiring. So be very clear about applying to each and everyone in the firm. Your chances just increase the more the number of people you tap to.
Correct.
So I think LinkedIn is the best way ahead there.
Got it.
So
Understood.
about me, so what
So,
I'd done
and
was, so basically, yeah. So my
now,
cousin was a
what about
CFO in
you?
Vedantu. Yeah, so my cousin
Hmm.
was CFO in Vedantu, and Vedantu was a client. So he
Got
knew the partners at my firm. So that's how he just forwarded my CV to not just this bank, but a lot of other banks also. So I think that
got it.
helped me. And given, I think once you have a rank, I think that is a game changer. Like what I've seen is a lot of friends struggle without having a rank to get into IB. So rank can
Hmm.
get coupled with the experience that I had in my course of articleship. Plus maybe CFA helps to some extent, I think. So that's an
Hmm.
add-on. It's not compulsory that you need to do a CFA to get into investment banking. So
Hmm.
I think that helped for me. Now the second
Understood.
bit about how do you apply, how do you train yourself, how do you prepare for the interview. I think there's certain things. Again, I'll just talk about my domain here and not
Hmm.
about the ECM or the DCM or the M&A bit. Now, just because it's a startup culture, I think it's important that you know what you're getting into. So basically, it's very common. This general rule is common for whatever you're getting into. When you get into consulting, you should know about consulting. What is it about? So about startups also, there's certain terminologies that you read about startups on a daily basis. So let's just say cash burn or the runway period or primary shareholding or what is the pre-money valuation, what is the post-money valuation. These are very common terms that you hear on a daily basis, and these are very much used in the news articles also. So basically, if you consider, let's just say Mint or maybe Tracker or any of the portals that you see, I think first point is that you start reading these news. So what do you mean by Series A versus a Series E? How do you differentiate that? Generally, what's a typical round size? Again, there's no round size for that, but typically you should know how this flows. Typically, the first round would be a seed round, then Series A, then Series B. So that is how it flows. So start understanding how this entire industry works, how the funds flow in and flow out. So what happens when a company goes from a private company to a listed company? So in the recent times, you've also seen that there's a lot of companies which have gone public, the startups, the likes of Nika, Zomato. So what exactly
Yeah.
happened in their case? So you're just reading about these stories also help educate yourself. Now this is on the market front, basically, about the industry.
Yeah.
But they don't expect you to know much about it. Let's just be
Hmm.
very clear with that. What they want you to know is that you have your basics sorted. Now, how do you
Correct.
get your basics sorted? So typically, I think revising certain topics, let's just say in case of CA, if you've read SFM, corporate finance, or maybe
Yeah.
accounting. So they're very, very
Hmm.
basic questions that they ask. So maybe if you know that, that helps a lot. If you've done CFA, I think you can go through CFA level 1 and level 2. Again, not everything, but yeah, the specific topics in
Hmm.
financial reporting analysis, equity evaluation, corporate finance. So these things help a lot. Also, there's certain books. So there's one book I think that helped me a lot was 400 Questions for IB. I don't remember the name
Okay.
exactly, but there's a book which
Hmm.
people generally read before applying for the roles.
Got it. Understood. So basically, your finance knowledge you should brush up your finance knowledge, and I think for CAs, what you have studied in SFM is the best source. And if you have done CFA, then you would have those knowledge also. Knowing what is happening in market is I think it's important for everyone wherever you're applying, knowing what's happening. It's a general knowledge which you should have. That is there, and certain terms which you were mentioning related to startups, that should be there. These are the points mainly you think you should be prepared with when you're appearing for. Is it necessary for people to know about financial modeling, because that is something which you do normally when you are joining an IB? So is that
Right.
knowledge you had that knowledge, or
Yeah. So in my case, I think it was a little different. So like given my RDC experience, so I prepared two models, one for bike rental
okay?
company and for a VR company. So I
Mm,
had a certain background, but I'm pretty sure that not many of us do, right? So in that
yeah.
regard, how do you go about it, right? See, again, people know that you're a fresher. They don't expect you to know much.
Mm,
Okay. But what they want you to understand is what they want to understand about you is how logical you are or structured you are.
mm, mm,
So
got it.
basically, basic three-step modeling is something you should know how these three statements are linked: the cash flow statement, the income statement, and the balance sheet. So
Correct.
they in almost all of the investment banking interviews that I had given, and also uh, what I heard from my friends is that typically this is assignment. It generally includes a presentation also and a
Mm,
typical, let's just say, profit and loss modeling. So basically, how do you drive the revenues or how do you drive the costs? So what are the
correct.
levers that you think are important? So I think these are some things that you need to maybe maybe I think it's about the experience also. So once you start giving or appearing for assignments, you get to know, acha, this is what comes on to.
Correct.
A better way to
Hmm.
prepare about it is, I think, one should maybe read the articles about it, maybe just go through some YouTube sessions for it. But again, don't pressurize yourself
Got it.
ki, acha, I've never done a financial modeling and will never be through.
Mm,
So
correct.
eventually, once you appear for the interviews, take help of your seniors also if required, so they know what to
Right.
show.
Got
So
it.
I think again,
Understood.
coming back to the point, networking is the most crucial thing here. So once you start networking with people, you get to learn a lot of things, because a lot of things that you eventually end up doing is never taught in the books.
Yeah. Correct. वो तो है. Right. ठीक है. And also, because people would be even looking for different IB firms, and there are a lot of IB firms in India. Uh, how should one select a good IB firm which they should join? Uh, Is there a way
Right.
like to research on it, like how many deals they have done? What is a good way to do that? Do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's a very nice question, actually. So I think that is something that I struggled with, like while I was taking up calls. But eventually, I think I spoke to a lot of people again as to how do you go about selecting a firm. Now, given that I've been here, I think I can talk about certain factors that you should keep in mind. So one, basically, I think what you should look at is the number of deals that they generally close in a year. So there are a lot of banks out there that take up a number of mandates, but they end up closing, or like the success rate, I would say, is just maybe 10% or 20%. So try looking out for banks which have a higher success rate. So that means these banks are completely or fully committed into the deal. So I think that's a very critical criteria. So basically, there's a website that I referred to. It's called Venture Intelligence. So in that, you can see investment bank wise the number of deals
Hmm.
closed and the value of deal closed.
Got it.
So I think
Got
that's a
it.
great startup for anyone. And that's how I think you can shortlist the banks that you want to go to.
The banks also want to. Okay.
Yeah. So
Got
it
it.
gives the data on a yearly
Understood.
basis. So 2022, 2021, 2019. You can see how the bank's been
Got it.
performing previously also. I think second thing we can do is basically go to the firm's website, see the deals that they've closed. So names that you can see will help you give a direction as to whether you should join the firm or not. Along with that, I think what one should do is see the background of the people that they are working already that are working there.
Hmm.
So basically, people coming from an IM or some good schools, and not
Got it.
just from anywhere, would be a good
Yeah.
choice. Fourth,
Hmm.
people who have left the firm, see where they're working
Yeah.
now. Have
Correct.
they been able to join a good PE VC? So I
Hmm.
think these four factors will help you decide which is a good investment bank. Now, of course, apart from this, pay matters, right? So once you
Yeah.
get into investment bank, maybe just on the offer stage, so talk about the pay and maybe get a fair sense of idea.
So when you're getting to the pay structure, so how does typically a pay structure looks like in an IB, and how does it grow? It's just
Yeah,
estimates like is fine. Yeah.
absolutely. So again, from the so front end pays the most, then comes the
Hmm.
mid office, and then the back office. So
Correct.
basically, in case of front end also, you can basically broadly divide into two brackets. One would be the bulge bracket
Hmm.
firms, so likes of, let's just say, City, or maybe a JP Morgan or a Morgan Stanley.
Got
So
it.
typically for us, e- even if you're a ranker, it's typically impossible to get into these roles.
Hmm.
These generally hire only from the top IMs.
Correct.
So it's
Got it.
but compulsory to have an MBA to go for these roles. But it's
Hmm.
a very interesting role that Bank of America Merrill Lynch offers. So it's a 1 year kind of tenure. So once if you clear that path and you're chosen, so you get to work there as an analyst. So that is something I think one should try for. So maybe just look out for that. Second thing, now coming to the other banks which are there, the Indian banks. So Axis Bank and all other such banks. These guys
Hmm.
also pay good. Now, these banks do not have a per se standard structure. So
Hmm.
depending upon your negotiation also, you can maybe work around that.
Hmm.
Now, within these itself, let's just say an Axis Bank versus an HDFC, the pay difference could be very different.
Hmm.
The third bit, which is let's just say, which consults the startups primarily, the
Yeah.
Rainmaker Group, or maybe the Indigo Edge, or maybe the Ambit,
The
or maybe
boutique investment firms.
Avendus,
Yeah.
boutique investment
Got it.
banks.
Hmm.
So these banks, again, the pay structure varies, and also again it depends on your negotiation. But I think broadly, maybe you can earn about, let's just say, a minimum of about 8 to 10 lakhs to upwards of to about 20 lakhs as a fixed pay.
Got it.
Now, what's more
Hmm.
interesting in these kind of firms is that you get something which is a variable pay or the
Hmm.
bonus.
Yeah.
So bonus could be anything. Now that's the most interesting part. So
Hmm.
typically, whenever you're talking about the salary, make sure you see what has been the previous trend without with regard to the bonus. The
Hmm.
bonuses in certain banks could range from about 30% to about 200% as well. So
Got it.
basically, let's just say if your salary is 20 lakhs, you might end up earning 60 lakhs,
Hmm.
which is
So
a very
bonuses are
substantial amount compared to other
correct.
fields.
Yeah, bonuses are usually depending upon the performance of an IB in that year. So usually get decided after the closure of the year. So if the performance has been good, so the range of bonuses can be in 20, 30 to let's say 200%.
Absolutely. So basically, again, let's just say some other banks, I know that the bonuses has been for 2021 about 130 percentage or maybe 180 percentage.
Got it.
So the bigger banks also, the bulge bracket, let's just say the BNP Paribas, so that paid I think around 200 percentage. So again,
Got it.
depends on the year and also on your individual performance.
Understood. Got it. Okay. And how does it grow? Like let's say for associate partner, how does it grow, and how much time does it take for a person to convert into higher roles?
Yeah. So in this case, so unlike other industries where there's a standard 20-30% hike every year,
Yeah, yeah.
here, if you're really good at something, I think your salary might just increase twofold. So basically, let's just say if you're transitioning from an analyst to an associate, in case of investment
Hmm.
banks, the hierarchy might differ across the bulge bracket banks.
Correct.
So your salary, let's just say, I'm just hypothetically, if it's just 10 lakhs, so 10
Hmm.
lakhs could be about 16, 17, or maybe 20 lakhs the next year
Got it.
when you
Hmm.
transition from one role to the other.
Hmm.
So there's no
Got
fixed standard, but it's very, it's exponential in nature.
it. Hmm.
So maybe once you come to a VP or a principal kind of level, your salary could be the fixed one, the fixed part could be northwards of 50 lakhs.
Got it.
Again, depends on banks to
Understood.
banks. And I think partners, of course, they earn more than crore maybe.
Of course. Yeah. Got it. Understood. So also the last question, usually when people go into IB, so what are the options available after IB? Once you've done IB, what options do you think you can go into?
Absolutely. So I think there are three broad options that people generally take up. The first and the foremost, the reason why most people join IB is to move into a buy side role. So buy side here means a PE or a VC generally.
Hmm.
So the transition, so basically no one, I haven't seen anyone joining a PVC directly, apart
Yeah.
from you, I think. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think what's more important is that you have some experience about how this entire industry works, and then you move on to a PEVC role. So in a PEVC role,
Got
I feel the pay increases substantially. Plus, I think on the working hour side also, it reduces a little bit. Again, depending upon the PE, the certain P's in which the working hour actually increases a lot.
yeah, yeah,
But the pay is something that is not comparable in certain
correct,
months. The second option is basically to move on to a higher IB or a better IB. So basically, the likes of
correct,
JP Morgan
correct.
front end in India.
Mm-hmm.
The
Got
third option is to basically the client that you're consulting for. So the mandate that you're running for,
it. Mm,
these companies, since you're working with them so closely, they end up hiring you.
correct.
Fourth, of course,
Got it.
so you can move into the corp dev roles of certain startups. So basically,
Understood.
that's the third thing. Basically, third and the fourth thing, it's related to the companies that you're working with.
Yeah, got it. Got it. So PVCs usually is a preferred for people.
Yeah,
You can enter into a bigger IB also, and third is startups or the companies you have run mandate
yeah,
for. Got it. So
yeah.
I didn't talk
And a
about
part of that,
the
I think,
work.
yeah,
Yeah, sorry.
yeah. And a part of that, I think every role is open for you. Considering the
Correct.
level
Yeah.
of knowledge you gain in just a short period of time, I think
Mhm.
everyone is more than ready to take you in.
Got it. Got it. Understood. Understood. So I didn't talk about how's the work-life balance, because investment banking people have always about there's no life. So tell me and the viewers about how's been your work-life balance.
Yeah, I think again it's very different for different investment banks. So I'll just break your question into two parts. So basically, when you're working in investment bank, you either do two things. One, either you're generally working on a deal or maybe sidelining on a deal, or second,
Mm-hmm.
you're doing the BD work or the business development work, which is the pitching thing that I talked about it
Correct.
earlier.
Huh.
Now, when you're a deal, like very simply, not to just scare off people, but I think you forget that there's something called certainty in your life.
Hmm.
So the collateral part that you see, the initial first or the second month,
Hmm.
you'll have to be deeply ingrained with the founder or the company that you're working with.
Correct.
That time, especially because the founder is generally in a rush to raise money and he
Hmm.
wants you to help him get to the market faster, basically get to the investors faster.
Yeah.
So that initial 1 month takes a lot of toll on you in certain cases.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you might end
Yep.
up working 100 hours per week also.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Now, after that, once the pitching session, once the roadshow starts, the
Correct.
initial month is again tough. So that time
Hmm.
also you might not get time to plan things right.
Hmm.
But I
Got
think
it.
eventually, as the deal progresses, the questions start repeating, and your work starts being a little repetitive. Again, it's new always, but
Correct.
a little repetitive. So that time you get maybe about you work 12 hours a day. But again, it's not like you're just leaving office maybe 5 p.m. or like 6 p.m. Like that
Hmm.
generally does not happen. In case
Got it.
whenever you're doing the second part, which is the pitching part or the business development work also.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that's a myth. People don't work a lot. It's actually when you're in the deal phase, you actually end up working entire day and even
Got it.
nights. You certain times you have to do some all nighters
Sorry.
itself.
Got it.
Yeah,
So it's of course challenging, but you get to learn a lot in those periods. Uh,
absolutely,
got
absolutely. So
got it. And
consider yourself in the position you know everything about the company that each of their heads do individually.
correct.
Again, it's just from a very broad perspective, but yeah, of course, the operational level challenge is something that you'll learn once you're there as a part of
Enter
the
a
company.
startup. Yeah. Thanks, Pratik. I had these many questions only. I think a lot of my viewers will have questions, which, of course, can put in the comments below in this interview. I'll get Pratik or I'll answer those questions whenever we get time, so that can be done. So thanks, Pratik, for coming on the show and helping the viewers about explaining about the IB world.
Absolutely, always a pleasure, Siddhant.
Thank you.
Thank you.